video, we're going to be taking a look at how we can make really clean shapes inside of Maya. Do it simply using Crease Polygon tool, and then be able to push those shapes over into ZBrush. Do some complex shapes using simple shapes, using their Boolean system that they've got, and then being able to take the results of that and polish it up to make a really clean object that looks really complex, but the process is kind of actually a little bit simple. So let's go ahead and get started with this process. I'm going to go ahead and hop on over to Maya and take a look at what we've got in here. And you can see inside of Maya, I'm going to just select the geometry and show you some of the geometry that was used for this. So you see we've got this piece here. This piece here actually cuts out through the center. If I open this up, we've got some different stuff for these pipes. If I move these out, you can kind of see what those look like in the center part. And then we've got some very simple shapes like you see here. And then these little things here to kind of cut things out. So this is all the high-res geometry that was pushed over. I'm going to go ahead and hide those parts right now, and I'm going to show you some of the geometry that was actually made for this thing here. So I'm going to just show the proxy geometry that we got here. Select the blade, go ahead and duplicate it, and I'm going to hit Shift P to get it out of the grouping, and we can hide the group that's got the proxy in there, Control H, just like that. And what I want to show you is with this geometry, I'm just going to delete a few pieces on here and kind of show you what happens with this creasing tool that we've got. And I'm going to go ahead and use the multi-cut tool. I'm going to use in the modeling toolkit. Just go to multi-cut tool and then drag from here to here, maybe across like this. And then I'm going to go into object mode, shift right click and say mirror object. If you take a look at the option box, these are the options for mirroring and combining everything together. Now I'm going to take these verts that we've got, and then I'm just going to shift right click and say merge vertices to center. Just grab these and just tap G, 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 like this. And I'll do G for that last part right there, like that. Now it's going to produce some really nasty looking shading, so I'll hit F10, select these edges, like this. Shift right click and say soften harden edge, and I'll just do harden edge, like that. So if we tap 3 on our model, you can see this is the smooth mesh preview version of it. Okay, so it looks pretty nasty, not so great. I like to delete history on this, Alt Shift D, just because anytime I would start working with the smooth mesh preview stuff, it can get a little dicey as far as like what goes on with the history. So I'm going to delete this and delete this. So just keep that in mind. So what we can do with this tool is if we select our edges that we want to crease, I'll go ahead and select these guys here. Actually, I just want something right along this top, like this. And then I want the bottom edge as well. So I'll select these edges right in through here. And we'll tap 3 like this. And if you shift right click and go to the crease tool, we can middle mouse drag left or right for a creasing amount, and I'm just going to drag it up to 100% like this. And you can also select verts. So if you select a vertice, you can middle mouse drag and crease those as well. So you can take a look at what it's producing for us for geometry. Now this is just a preview, so this dark nasty kind of shading that can be dealt with and kind of fixed up a little bit later. So I'm going to go ahead and shift right click and say mirror, and I'm going to mirror this across like this. And after some time with some modeling, I'm going to go ahead and hide this. I'll show the high res parts to this piece that you see here. And you can see this is basically what I modeled. It wasn't anything too complex. If we tap 1, you can see here's the base cage for this thing, and the base cage might always look a little bit weird and a little bit funky. So if I tap 3, there's that smooth mesh preview version. If I go to the side, you can see some of the geometry that was made for this. So I was following the split in through here for the blade, and kind of pulling these parts out here like this. I think I did a little bit of creasing on here to kind of hold that edge at the top, and then just let this one kind of round out a little bit in through here. So if I select F10 and select these edges and shift right click and say Crease Tool, you can see If there's no round, no holding of that edge, it was kind of rounded like this, and then we kind of middle mouse drag to the right. We can do something like that, right? And so we got a really nice kind of, again, pretty clean shape that was made for the blade, like this. And then after that's done, you can create another version of it, and I would just hide this, and I'll say blade high. So this is what is done after you convert this from a smooth mesh preview into actual geometry. Let me hide this and show you this pre-smooth version. So when you're going back and forth, you remember 1 is the base cage, 3 is the smooth mesh preview version of this. And if I go through, and if I go modify, convert, smooth mesh preview to polygons, it will actually go through and add divisions to it. If you go to the channel box, you can go see the node that's on here for this. And the divisions is set to 2. You can bump that up to 3 if you wanted. And you can see, again, the geometry was created for it. Now, the other thing I did, I assigned a blend shader to this stuff. If you have a blend shader and pump up the specular color, that's always pretty good for evaluating like what's going on with the surface. Now, if we have this geometry at the end, if we double click this edge like this, we could potentially take this edge and shift right click and say harden edge like this, just so you can kind of get a really nice, clean, crisp edge going down there for visibility inside of Maya. That doesn't really matter for a ZBrush, but it matters for what you're going to be seeing inside of ZBrush. So I'm going to take this thing off actually and just put this down to 0. This is how you can test this stuff out, and if you put it back down to 0 for the pre-smooth thing, you can delete history on it, and then you can just tap 3 to do the smooth mesh preview version of it again. So after it's been smooth, I would take this. This is us starting to move things inside of ZBrush, right? So using very simple modeling, just like what we just did for these are just actually, if you go create polygon primitives, and they've got pipes that you can do here, and if you do a pipe, you can do this. It's got an inner and outer part, and I just made an outer ring and an inner ring. This is actually just a sphere that matched up the same count. I was doing like 16 divisions around, and if you do a sphere that's got 16 divisions, it can line up pretty easily with that right there. So again, these were just some cylinders, and I just did this smooth mesh preview version of that. I held the hard edges on here like that, so you can get some nice clean cylinders going for right up there. And I've got this shape that cuts this part out here, and then I took those pipes and I did some pipes within inside of here like that. They're sitting inside of there in the center, so you can't really see them. And to get all these pieces out to ZBrush, I just selected everything you see here like this, and then just exported that as one big FBX. So I said export selection, did an FBX for that. And then if we go over to ZBrush, you can see that if we select this like this star here, and we go to our Z plugins, and if we go to FBX importer exporter, we're going to import in, and we can import in the FBX for everything. I was making a high-res cut group pieces folder just to keep everything really organized, and so here's everything together. And if I import that in, it's going to take all the pieces and it's going to kind of separate them out. Now, with inside of ZBrush with their live Boolean system that they've got, this is what we could do with this blade high. So I'm going to just hide everything right now, turn on live Booleans, make sure that that's on, and then we've got this blade cut. And if we put this to this is a positive. If we put this to a negative, you can see it's going to cut the entire thing out from this. Now, if we put it on move, the gizmo tool, we can push, select this, we can push this thing out, and I know I want to get a certain thickness on this. I can turn on my pipes that I made, and based off of our reference that we had, this comes in to be right about there, I think. Somewhere in that area, like that. Now, if I turn on the polyframe, you can actually see a polygon version of this that's kind of transparent to kind of help you understand maybe what's going on. I do have a mirror function on my interface that exists with under deformations. So you can actually take a piece and mirror it across. So I'm going to mirror it across here. And then we got mirror and weld. Mirror and weld is under geometry and under modified topology. You can do that. I use these all the time because I'm going to mirror this across and I'm going to weld it because mirror and weld only works from one direction over. So I'll kick this over just like this. So then now if I turn off the polyframe, you can see it's going to cut off both sides of this thing here like that. The other thing that I did was I took these pipes combined that we've got here and I duplicated them, and let me just put this on solo so we can just see this. So this is the alternate version of this. If we turn on polyframe, I wanted the inner parts of this. I wanted to use the inner parts of this to do a boolean. I didn't make that in Maya, but I thought I could just do this inside of ZBrush pretty easily. So if you go to polygroups on these guys, let's find polygroups. There is a group by normals. So if we group by normals, then we can get all the inner parts away from the outer parts. If we hold down Control Shift, we can just click on these polygroups here like this. And I need to rotate around, and I know there's some pieces on the back that I want to get rid of. So I just want to keep these parts. I want to delete hidden. I've got this on my interface in here under delete hidden. That exists under geometry, modified topology. There's delete hidden here like that. And then now that we've got that, I would want to use close holes. And I've got a close holes here, but that exists within this menu up in here for modified topology as well. So I'm just going to close the holes on that. Now the display is incorrect. It's inversed for what we need. So we will have to go to display properties and just say flip, and that basically flips the normals. And then now we can go to our subtool and turn off solo, and I'm going to use these as a negative shape and turn off the polyframe. So you can see how those became a negative kind of hole inside of there. And then we've also got this guy here, which I just want to leave that one alone. I'm going to just not really do anything with this. I do know I want to do this. I want to divide this guy up, and I'm going to push him at the bottom of this stack. And we're going to use that thing we just looked at with polygroups. We're going to group by normals like this, and then we're going to do this thing here. We're going to go to geometry, and then we're going to go to crease, and we're going to crease polygons and put this down, this crease level to 3. And we're going to say crease polygroups. So we just group by normals, and it's going to put a crease on everything. And then we're going to add subdivision levels. We're going to hit Control D, 1, 2, 3, and then after the 4th time, because of that crease level was on 3, it'll start to round things out just a little bit for us. So that produces a really clean, nice kind of look. And then we'll go back to Subtool, and this is the very top thing. This is the start of this. If you click this right here, this means this is a shape, and all the pieces underneath of it exist for this thing. This thing's on here. This is a negative shape, and that's going to turn that out. And then this will be another start. So this becomes a whole nother object. Okay, so after that's all kind of set up, now we're going to go ahead and take this. There's a plugin for booleans. Booleans does exist right in here under the subtool area, so you can make boolean mesh. But if you go to the live boolean master, this thing has a generate single start, so that start thing that I just told you about, everything from here below, it'll make it an object. Everything from here below would make an object, and if we made another thing, it'll make those into separate objects. So that's kind of nice. You can also tell it to be non-destructive, so it'll keep all this stuff that you're building with and make a whole new mesh. So we'll click on the Make Boolean Mesh. It'll go through, and we got this new one that we see here, and it kept this together here and this one here as well. So I want to use another plugin that's called Dynamesh Master. We'll have to get that plugin and load it into the system. That's pretty easy. It exists on the Pixelogic site. And this one lets you do Dynamesh Master, and it just lets you do a polygon count. So I want this to be 1.5 million polys, and I'll just say Dynamesh for this part here. And it's going to Dynamesh everything together, and it just joins everything together, makes it really nice looking. And then we're going to use polish. Polish exists under deformation. right in through here. So I'm going to click polish and run this just a few times like this. And then we've got that, and we could do the same thing to this union mesh. They're all separate meshes. We could just say Dynamesh like that, and you can see it's going to put it together. We could polish that if you wanted. This polish, it does a little bit of rounding on the edges, and this, whenever you bake your information, this ends up looking really nice for your normal maps that you're going to create. So it's something that you might want to run through for your hard surface pieces.